It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. Pete Francis alongside Willie Witten. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode of the Blues Rock Show. All right, Willie, we got some news this week. Larry McCray is releasing his first new album in 7 years, Blues Without You. And this album is produced by Joe Bonamassa and Josh Smith. Obviously, over the past year, Joe and Josh have stayed pretty busy producing a lot of albums. So my question to you, Willie, will this album be another number one for Joe and Josh?
I think it very well could be. I don't want to dodge the question. This should be a simple yes or no. I don't think it's that simple. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, but I think it's going to be for a slightly different reason. And that's not to diminish the Joe and Josh tandem. And by the way, they are becoming a little bit of their own mini powerhouse. I'm excited to see how that plays out, especially as they get older and the rigors of the road and playing and new material become more difficult. I feel like they have already started to forecast their second wind in the music industry. Back to Mr. McCray. I think the reason why this has a great potential to be number one is, as much as we talk about social media, what I've noticed with the discussion of this album is his fellow artists, his fellow guitarists, his fellow musicians are clamoring to talk about how wonderful it is to have a new Larry McCray album. And Pete, you and I can sit here all day long and talk about this artist or that artist, but I think it doesn't take a genius to figure out that a man's pretty darn good when every one of his compatriots, every one of his fellow musicians is all over how excited they are. Pete, am I reading a little bit too deep in the tea leaves, or do you see what I'm getting at? Not to diminish Joe and Josh, but I think it's because there's something really
He definitely has the
guy.
respect of his peers, is what you're saying, Willie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so his first album in 7 years, I see this going number one, just like, Joanna Connor's. We don't know about Eric Gale's yet. I think that's coming out this week. We'll find out, which I'm guessing that's probably going to be number one as well. So, yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of success. I see this being number one. First time I heard Larry McCray was a little over 10 years ago. It was in Chicago, Willie, at Kingston Mines. It was the first time I ever went to Kingston Mines.
Really?
And they had two different acts that night. And those two acts were Larry McCray and Joanna Connor.
Wow.
And so before that night, that was the first time I had heard of either one of those. Was that night I discovered both of them. And so when I discovered Larry McCray that night, he actually played the song Soul Shine, which was written by Warren Haynes. And Larry McCray, fun fact, he's the first person who actually recorded that song back in 1993. So Larry McCray's been on the scene for a long time. And similar to Joanna Connor, I think he's one of those artists that over time, they've had the respect of their peers in the business, but this is about getting these artists out to a wider audience. And I think that's where Joe and Josh come in producing the album, is they can really help channel these artists, get them, the absolute best album out of them, and then use sort of that marketing machine that's behind Joe to really push their music and get their music out there. And so they really get the respect they deserve from the fans. These artists have that respect already from their peers, but it's about getting it from the fans and having the fans know that these artists are around and producing really great music. So yes, I do see this being another number one album for Joe and Josh, and Larry McCray definitely deserving of it.
Yeah, that all makes sense. You're more definitive yes than I am, but I think you made some really good points. And I do agree, Pete, that they have been around for a while. I think that in the past couple of years, when people being shut in, I don't know, I feel like there's been in some ways a nice shift where people have taken a look at some of these, Joe's label, Keeping the Blues Alive, to take a more maybe reflective look and say, hey, there are some artists out there who, if people got to know, they would love. So I think you're 100% right on. I'm talking about the artists. You're talking about the fans.
So much of this business is all about marketing.
I know.
You can be the most talented artist in the world, it does not matter if
Right.
you can't market yourself.
Right.
So,
I think
that's
that
one of the
helps.
great things that Joe and Josh are doing, and with Keeping the Blues Alive Records, is they're promoting artists and they're really giving them that lift that they need to help them market themselves and really push themselves up and out there. And that's one of the best things about it is they're pushing artists that are very talented but really need to be heard by more people. So I think that's the great thing about this.
I'll say one quick last thing, and it's the devil's advocate argument. And when Eric Gales was on the show a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned that, and I think these were his words exactly, that Joe and Josh helped me make the best Eric Gales album. I think that that's the way it should be done. The devil's advocate argument here is, I think most producers aim for the album that most people will like to hear, even if it's not the truest album for the artist. That may work against Larry McCray, but it's Larry McCray. So yeah, I think you're probably right. It's a #1 album.
All right. So we recently talked about Spotify on the show, Willie, and Neil Young and Joe Rogan and that whole controversy, basically with Neil Young taking his music off of Spotify because of some of Joe Rogan's comments. So there's some more Spotify news that's related to this, and I've got some stats for you here, Willie.
Hit me.
So there was a study done by Forrester Research, and here's what it said: that 19% of Spotify users have canceled or plan to cancel over the Joe Rogan controversy. So what do you think about that number there, Willie?
The first thing I'm going to say is it is Forrester Research, and I expect better of Forrester Research. When you posit a question that says cancel or plan to cancel, why even ask that question? There is a gulf between doing something and planning to do something. Pete, and this isn't just you or me, I could ask anyone who's watching, how many things have you planned to do in your life that you haven't done? A lot.
Willie, do you plan to stop doing the Blues Rock Show?
Yes, I plan to do it this week, but here I am again.
Are you going to stop it, or do you plan to?
I don't know. And that's
I think I'm planning on stopping at some point.
At some point, we'll have to. At some point, we'll go ahead and hopefully move on to Blues Rock Show 2, which will also be just you and I. But I digress. I think the problem with this number, and I think it's bunk. I really think it's bunk. And I think that shame on Forrester Research, because they are just giving out a number that's like in so much of today's media, they're just looking for eyes, because eyes will be drawn to that number, Pete. Do you really think, Pete, that a fifth of Spotify users, when it's easier to do nothing, which is not cancel, are going to go out of their way to cancel because of something that's going to be out of the news 7 days from now?
That number does seem a little clickbaity to me, Willie. I mean, 19%. Spotify has millions and millions and millions of subscribers, but that's saying that 1 in 5 subscribers on Spotify are leaving because of this. There's just no way that number could be accurate.
Nope.
1 out of 5. I mean, there's no way that many people would get up and get off of a platform over it. I don't see that number being accurate.
And that's why they needed the number. And to get the number, they had to ask a bad question. They put in 2 things that are fundamentally different in the same question and treated them as if they were the same. Doing something and planning to do something are completely different things, and anyone over the age of 10 knows this. So I think it's too bad, because I think it detracts from other music news. And what I'd like to shift this to, it's still in the realm of tech, but it's music news. Pete, I've been hearing that AI is not just going to be the future of our refrigerator, our microwave, what have you, but it's going to be the future of music production. I'm hearing rumors, and they're backed up by facts and by actual musical pieces, that sometime in the future, not just will we have AI produce symphonies, music, it will also take over things like editing, sound attenuation, the way we have conversations on the phone. And I know that's not quite musical. Pete, do you think that this is more people talking about clickbaity stuff? Or do you think that AI can do all this stuff and actually sort of replace humans' roles in music?
Well, Willie, I think it can be used as a tool. So I don't think it's necessarily, it's not going to eliminate the human element. Like at the end of the day, I think there's just so many things in terms of recording music and, mixing an album and mixing a song. There's just things that a human are going to be able to do that a computer is not going to be able to do. Now, I think as technology continues to improve, yes, I think it can help in some instances and maybe make a producer or whoever's mixing the album, making their life easier with some of the things that it can do. But at the end of the day, I don't see AI just straight up replacing, producers and mixers and all that stuff. I don't see it. It's not gonna, a computer cannot capture the same sort of magic that would be made by actual musicians and humans.
I agree with that, but I'm going to ask you this question. Would you retract that comment if I threw at you a couple different pieces of music, some composed by humans, some composed by
Now, let me ask
computers?
you this though, Willie. Will any of this music actually be in the blues rock genre? I'm guessing the answer is no.
The answer is no. And I think this is what I eventually wanted to get to, is because
It depends on the type of the music, right?
I agree. There we go. So
Because
continue.
pop is more formulaic
Yep.
and more produced. So I think for blues rock, I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. But I think what you're getting at in more popular music, yes, I'm sure it probably will become more and more prevalent.
Well, I think you beat me to the punch. The blues, especially blues rock, rock and roll, so much of it was always predicated upon the fact that there is raw emotion, that this is real, that it's imperfect, that these are imperfect musings and artistic revelations by imperfect minds, such are human minds. The thing that I would say can never replace, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm never going to go to a concert to see someone set up a computer on screen and click a button and then walk off stage.
Right.
Are you kidding me? Think about all the shows that you've seen, that I've seen, that we've seen together. A good portion of the show is you can just feel the rawness. It is a human, almost tribal experience. So in that regard, I don't care how good the music, how good of mixing, how good of editing these computers can do. You're never going to want to sit through a concert like that. And we've already seen so much of the music industry shift towards concerts where they get the revenue. So I guess that's what I would say. But I do think it's a little bit disconcerting. I mean, do you get a little nervous that they could finally, they've taken over the computers, so many other things. Do you have no nervousness on this, Pete?
Not for this genre.
Okay.
So not for blues rock music. No, I do not. I mean, I think it's already happening with the other genres, but as far as this music goes, not really.
Do you think that could be a bump for the blues rock and blues rock genres? Is that as people start to see their music that they thought they loved replaced by computers, they might turn to something more real, like a Larry McCray album or a Joanna Connor album? Do you think this could be a bump for this genre?
I don't know, Willie. I mean, at the end of the day, people have to know about this music, right?
Yeah.
And they still have to know that it exists. Right. So even if they're getting this and maybe there is a longing to get a little bit more of that raw sort of music, I mean, they still have to know where it is and they still have to discover it. And that's really one of the issues that this genre just has in general. It's like the people who know about it, right? Right. Oh, but yeah. It's that other group that doesn't know about it. And I mean, I don't know. Honestly, Willie, I wouldn't be very optimistic about them kind of getting into this music because of that. We're kind of living in that, TikTok generation right now. Yeah. Where everything is just so disposable and so quick. And yeah, I mean, I don't see a lot of people going this way because of that.
All right, fair enough.
Well, what do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments section below. What do you think about those Spotify numbers? Do you think that's accurate? And do you think Larry McCray's new album will go #1? Let us know down in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and please hit the like button. It helps us tremendously so more people see the video. And that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Blues Rock Show. For Willie Witten, I'm Pete Francis. We'll see you next time.